Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy to see everybody here on International Happiness Day or Day of Happiness. Others will be joining us, but while we're getting started,
You know what, Doug? I can add people to the room as you're speaking. Yeah.
While we're getting started, if you would like, go to the chat and tell us where you're from. And if you would like to connect with others in the room who would like to get to know you, feel free to share your contact information or your LinkedIn profile. We're happy to have all of you with us today. The couple of ground rules to get us started. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking, and there will be an opportunity for you in some cases to answer or use the chat. You can use the chat also to raise questions or to make comments, and we'll be monitoring that as we go along. There will be a Q&A opportunity later in the hour, but we'll also try to address as many questions as we can as we go along. So feel free to pop questions into the chat as they occur to you and as they relate to what Dana is sharing with us. We will also share a copy of the recording for today's session, so you can look forward to that. In today's Friday, sometime next week. I can't promise a date, but it'll be in the next few days. So with that, welcome again. My name is Doug Dixon. I'm secretary and co-founder of the Encore Network. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dana Hilmer, who is a member of the Encore Network, but also the founder of Wiser and Free, and also someone trained in positive psychology and all of the things that have to do with happiness. So, Dana, without further ado, over to you. We're looking forward to hearing more.
Awesome. Well, first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out today to commit to yourself, right? There's a lot going on in the world, and I think we all could use a little bit of focusing on our happiness and our well-being. I'm going to actually change us to gallery view so I can see your faces. So if you're able to put your video on, I invite you to do so because it's lovely to actually interact with faces. If not, totally get it. Do what works for you. Welcome. I want to start the conversation actually and just ask you a question. And I'd love to just kind of see your thoughts in the chat. This question's regarding how are you experiencing your day so far? So for those of you that are having a really great day so far, put me in the chat. It usually works better if I can see your faces. All is good today, says Norman. Awesome. Got a smiley face. So far, so good. Excellent. How many of you are experiencing a day that just kind of feels like, it's like just one of those days, got to get through the list, got to get things done, nothing to write home about? We can have a lot of those kind of days too, can't we? And how many of you are having a day that just feels really challenging? It really just does not feel good at the moment. I'm not seeing in the chat, but I trust some of you are probably having that kind of day as well. The reason why I'm asking this question is the kind of day you're having, the kind of moment that you're experiencing has everything to do, more often than not, with what it is that you choose to focus on. So I just want to repeat that. The day that you're having, what you're experiencing, how you're feeling, has everything to do with what you're choosing to focus on. And that's a really powerful thing that I want you to kind of hold during our conversation today, because I'm going to be circling back to that notion throughout our conversation. So today's topic is happiness. I'd love to hear from a couple of you. How do you, for yourself, define happiness? Maybe 2 or 3 of you can raise your hand. This is an interactive conversation. I don't want to be talking at you, so let's have this be a conversation. So I'd love to hear a couple voices. How do you define happiness for yourself?
And since we can't see all of you on the screen, it would be helpful if you use the raise hand function, because that would move you up into the area where we can see you.
Yeah, and I just want to hear a couple voices. Let's just kind of popcorn out some thoughts. How do you define happiness?
feeling joy with yourself and everything around you.
Great to see you, Colleen. Thank you.
You too.
Yeah, feeling joy. Who else? How do you define happiness? Any other hands raised here? I'm having a hard time seeing the whole group, Doug. Um, Feel free to unmute your mic, just kind of chime in. Norman raised his hand. So, Norman, what are your thoughts on happiness?
Would say focusing on gratitude and looking for things to be grateful for.
Yes, that's huge. And we will definitely be covering that today. Beautiful. Any other thoughts on happiness? You know, both of you have touched on parts of it. And there's really kind of two kind of key components to happiness. One is what Colleen talked about, joy, doing the things that you love to do with the people you love to do them with. And by the way, that includes yourself, right? So oftentimes when we think about happiness, we think about doing those things and being in a place and experiencing those things that light us up. Another very important part of happiness is also having a sense of meaning, having a sense of purpose, having a sense of something that you're working towards that matters to you, something that you're working towards that is perhaps outside of yourself. And that's something that's actually really important as we reach this stage of life, right? A lot of you in the Encore Network are either approaching retirement, you might already be retired, you might be creating that Encore career. We're all kind of at the stage of life of being 50 and older, right? And so we need to be intentional about, yes, doing those things we love to do, being connected to the people that we love, and doing something, working towards something that matters to us. So I want to debunk kind of a sense of what we get from our society. The message we get from our society is if you do the thing, you'll be happy, right? So when you graduate, when the kids leave the house, when you finally retire, when you finally downsize, when you feel healthy again, that is where happiness resides. We have a tendency to put happiness out there. And the opposite is true. It is when you're happy, when you're well, when you're in a positive state of mind, that is when everything in your life is more successful. So when you look at work kind of metrics, you are more productive, you are more focused, your work relationships are better, you are more organized, like you are more efficient, you are more innovative. All of those kind of markers or metrics, quote unquote, of success are elevated when you're in a place of being happy and well. Your health markers, right? Your stress is lower, your overwhelm is lower, your anxiety is lower, your peace of mind is higher, your energy is higher. Your relationships, all of our relationships, we all know this to be true, are so much better when we are taking care of ourselves. So it is imperative to realize this paradigm and know that your happiness is your job. Your happiness is an inside job and has very little to do with what's going on in the outside world. In fact, it also has very little to do with the challenges that you might be currently facing. So if you think about a pie chart, about 10% of your happiness, and this is assuming your basic human needs are met, you are sheltered, you are safe. About 10% of your happiness is based on external circumstances. So those external circumstances could be the, yeehaw, I finally retired. It could also be the external circumstance of something that's more challenging, right? Only about 10% is actually dictated by that. About 50% of our happiness is based on kind of this biological set point that we all have. We all kind of have a natural tendency to kind of weave in and out of a certain kind of state of being. So about 50% is based on that. The really good news, and this is what we're focusing on, about 40% of your happiness is based on the daily choices you make every day. That 40% is powerful. That 40% can shift your day. That 40% can shift how you experience your life. And so that's what we're focusing on, is the 40%. So what are some of those small actions you can take? What are some of those small practices you can incorporate into your life that even on really tough days can elevate your sense of well-being? I know, Norman, you mentioned gratitude, right? Absolutely. That's one of the practices we'll talk about today. So, your happiness, again, is your choice, is your responsibility. And it is not selfish. There are so many people that I encounter that feel kind of guilty almost if they take care of themselves first. They feel like, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do. I couldn't possibly, right? Your happiness is not selfish. In fact, I would argue it's a gift. My mom died 18 years ago, actually 19 years ago, and I do not remember her smile. And I can tell you right now that the biggest gift that she could have given me, my sister, my family, the biggest gift she could have given us was the gift of her smile, to see that she was a happy person, to see that she was taking care of herself. And that is not something I experienced with my own mom. And so I mention this because it's powerful. People are going to remember you for how you make them feel. They're going to remember you for how you go about your life and the energy that you exude. And your happiness is part of that. And not only is it not selfish, but your happiness is contagious, right? We all know, like energy wise, when you go in a room and something went down, like something negative happened, and like the energy is just like wonk, right? But we also experience the energy of people that are happy. And we've experienced that as well, right? And when you're taking care of yourself, when you're doing the things that light you up, when you're operating in a place of gratitude, you're not only experiencing that yourself, you are giving permission to every single person around you to do the same thing. So your happiness is not selfish, your happiness is actually contagious, and it's a gift that you give to other people. So with that kind of setting the stage, I want to focus on that 40%. That 40% of what you do have control over, the choices you can make every day. So one thing I want you to remember is we humans are creatures of habit, right? Our brain does not care if we're happy. Our brain's number one job is to keep you safe. That's why we have the negative conversations going on in our head all the time. That's why every time you think of doing something new, your brain starts screaming at you, right? Your brain's job is to keep you safe. And your brain's job is to be efficient. And that's why we're creatures of habit. And you'll see different stats out there. Some say 40%, some say over 60%. But essentially, half to 2/3 of what you do every day and how you think every day is habitual. You're not even thinking about it. And so this is the one thing I really want you to focus on, is the fact that you have a choice. And you need to remember to choose. And that's a practice, right? We just slip into our habit, we slip into our story, we slip into a certain emotion, we slip into a certain thought pattern. We do the same thing over and over. We need to remember we have a choice. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was a psychologist. He was in a Nazi concentration camp in the most, unbelievably unbearable situation. And he noticed that the people that survived, nobody was thriving in that environment, but the people that survived were the people that were able to offer their last bread crumb to somebody else. They were able to reach out, and they very importantly had something important to them that they were looking forward to, right? Something to live for. So a quote of Viktor Frankl's I love is, he says, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is your power to choose your response. And in your response lies your growth and your freedom. I absolutely love that quote. Obviously, it's memorized because it's powerful. Between stimulus and response, between the thing that happens and what you're going to do about it, there's a space. And in the space is where your power lives. And this is where your choice lives. And this is the practice. If you walk away from this conversation with one thing, I want you to walk away remembering that you always have a choice. You have a choice of what to focus on. You have a choice of what you're going to make something mean to you, because we all create narratives in our head. You have a choice of how you're going to feel about something. You have a choice about how you're going to act. We all have a choice. So that's a super important thing. So I'm going to kind of break out our conversation into some of the practices, and I want you to really walk away with some real tools as part of our conversation. I want to mention too, I did prepare a workbook for you for this conversation. You'll find it in the beginning of the chat. The workbook you can download after our conversation, and the goal of it is to help you reflect a little bit deeper and ideally turn some of the insights that you have into action. Because we can all have all the aha moments we want, but if we don't turn it to action, we don't change our life, right? So this workbook will help you do that. So it's at my website, which is wiserandfree.com/happier. You do not need to provide an email. So I just want you to know that. So this is just something that you can have. And I really hope you do, because I think you deserve to spend some time really thinking about some of these things that will elevate your happiness and well-being. You don't see the workbook in the chat. Let's see here. In the very, very top of the chat, a free workbook, Happier in Midlife and Beyond. And you'll see the link there. It's at wiserandfree.com/happier. And when Doug follows up with the recording, we will also follow up with the workbook link as well. So you'll have it for sure. So the first thing I want to talk about is the importance of living in alignment with what matters to you. Living in alignment. Gandhi has this beautiful quote. He says, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony, which means there's this beautiful alignment between all those things that are going on inside of you and how you're operating in the world and the things that you're doing in this world. There's a beautiful harmony. And I want to talk about that because the values that we have can change as we get older, right? A lot of your values may be very similar or very much the same, right? Whether it be family or friends or getting outdoors or health, like there's certain things that are core to who you are, and they stay the same. But as we get older, certain things change. First of all, you change, you grow, you evolve. The roles that you play in your life change, right? My kids are all kind of getting up and out of the nest, right? My role as a mom is changing. Our roles change with work. Some of you may be retired, right? So as our roles change, the expectations on us change. And as our roles change, things kind of shift. Like, what's important to me now? What do I want to live into now? And the way you define success now may be very, very different than how you define success when you started working. And with so many people that I coach, what I find is that kind of discomfort or that kind of sense of loss or kind of that ache, that pain happens when they're living out of alignment with what they say they value. And sometimes they're not even looking at the fact that they're still living the life they thought was successful, quote unquote, right? That was kind of fed to them. It looked successful. It felt successful. I've got the job. I've got the corner office. I got the house. I got the kids. Like they're living the life that looks successful, but sometimes they're not feeling it because inside them, something has shifted. Inside all of us, something has shifted. A lot of things have shifted. And so it's really important for you to take a look at what is it that you truly value right now. So I'm going to give you an exercise that I think is very, very powerful, and I'm going to open it up for a little conversation. And I want to look at this alignment through a different lens. I want to look at alignment through the lens of how it is you want to be experiencing your life. Most of us think about, what do I want to do? We're very action-oriented people. I want you to shift the lens to, how do I want to feel? And the tool I'm giving you is called the compass point. And the compass point, and you'll see this in your workbook, basically challenges you to answer this question. How do I want to feel about myself and about my life on my very last day? How do I want to feel about myself and about my life on my very last day? This is a powerful lens to look through, because when you make your choices using this feeling state as a filter, you will be making choices that are aligned with how it is you want to experience your life. I can guarantee you that the last job I had as a senior executive in magazine publishing. If I had my compass point at that time, that job would have been a hell no. It looked great on paper. I took the job because I should. It was kind of the expectation. It's the way the career ladder was supposed to look. You know, it had the corner office, it had a salary. But if I put that job through the lens of my compass point, which is I want to feel at peace, knowing I live fully and I loved with all my heart, that is my compass point. If I made my choice through that lens, that job would have been a hell no. So I want to challenge you to play with this. And this is the one thing, if you do one of the things in the workbooks, this is the one thing I would recommend, is to get clear for yourself how it is you want to be feeling. And to use that feeling state as a filter for the choices you make. Now, these are the big choices you make, right? Does this big choice move me closer to that feeling state? It's also the really little choices you make. Like we all have days when we're in a funk, but there's always, always something you can do to move closer to that feeling state. There's always something you can do. If, you know, my compass point again, I want to feel at peace, knowing I live fully and I love with all my heart. Sometimes living into my compass point is I'm going to feel more at peace if I just hang out in this blanket and rest for the next couple hours, right? So it's tapping into how you want to feel. And the reason why this is so important is every single goal you have set has very little to do with the goal itself. It has to do with the feeling state. We just don't think about it that way. The goal to lose 10 pounds, for example, has nothing to do with 10 pounds. It has everything to do with how you want to feel. I want to feel fit. I want to feel strong. I want to feel good in my jeans. I want to feel like I can hike with my grandkids. I want to feel, right? Every single goal is about a feeling state. So a lot of people can kind of land on one or two words very easily. Many people like myself are wordsmithers and I overthink everything. So when I was doing this exercise, I had a poster and I had all these feeling states kind of written down on the poster of how I wanted to feel. And I noticed there were themes. And that's where I came up with my phrase. I want to feel at peace, knowing I lived fully and I loved with all my heart. I'm very clear what being at peace means to me. I'm very clear what living fully means to me. And by the way, I added being present to the living fully. There's all sorts of things I want to do to live fully, but if I'm not present to my life, I'm not going to be living it fully. To love with all my heart. I lead with love, but I'm not always great at loving myself, right? So I'm very clear on what those words mean to me. And your goal as you do this exercise is to come up with something that is so memorable, that is so easy for you to conjure up in the moment, that you can really ask yourself, will this choice move me closer to this feeling state? So I want to just open it up for 2 or 3 of you to share your thoughts and just kind of popcorn out, 3 or 4 feeling states that you would love to experience. How do I want to feel about myself and about my life? And by the way, if that's how you want to feel in your last day, it's probably how you want to feel today too. So how do you want to feel about yourself in your life? I'd love to see or hear a couple of your thoughts on that.
I'll go, Dana.
Beautiful. Colleen.
I want to feel content and at ease.
Content and at ease. Beautiful. So as you're making your choices, as you're working your business, as you're doing the things that you do in your life, does this feel easy? Do I feel content? Or does it feel complicated, right? Like putting it through that filter will ensure that you're making the choices that are aligned with your feeling that way. Yeah, it's beautiful. I want to feel content. I want to feel ease. Who else? How do you want to be feeling about yourself and about your life? I'm going to put this on gallery view here so I can see all of you. Either raise your hand either in the reaction bar or just raise your hand and I can see you. How do you want to feel about yourself and about your life? We had a quiet group today. Like we need to get some music on or something.
Hi, it's Lynn from Toronto, Canada. Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
Lynn. Good to see you.
Uh, Thank you for doing this. I'm really enjoying it. I'm also struggling, though, ironically, to find a way to say it. But what I want to feel every day, as you said, not just at the end of my life, but today, is who I really am. To know that and to not have lived it based on North American values. I would love
Mhm.
to be living, frankly, in one of the Scandinavian countries. They're among
Mm,
the happiest in the world. And there's no reason for policies and things to not make that happen here. It's
mm,
choice. So I would say I want to live comfortably knowing I chose who I really am. I wasn't
mm.
displaced from my own life.
Yeah, it's beautiful. There's a book by Bronnie Ware. It's called The Top Regrets of the Dying. And she said the number one regret of the dying, by the way, she was a hospice nurse. So she spent 10 years with people in the last days of their life. The number one regret of the dying is I wish I had the courage to live the life that is true to me, not the life that other people expected of me. So, Lynn, you're onto something so powerful, right? To be true to yourself. And that's the second question I want to ask all of you as we kind of think about living in alignment is if you were to be 10% more true to who you are, what would you do? Or what would you not do? And I say 10% true, that's an arbitrary number. But my point is, none of us are going to shift everything overnight. Not everything changes 100%, right? We do everything in increments and we want to see progress. So if you were to be 10% more true to yourself, what would you do? What would you stop doing? Anybody have some thoughts they want to share on that or put your thoughts in the chat? I know for me, one thing that I'm stopping doing is I'm stopping being so damn hard on myself, right? I'm my own worst critic. I think most of us are our own worst critics. I want to feel that I helped people along the way. Yeah. So think in terms of that. What are some of those things that you can do to live more in alignment with what is true to you? Another thing you can do is look at your calendar. Look at your calendar and look at your commitments. And do you actually really care about every single one of those things on your calendar? Because they made it there because you chose to make them there, right? That's the real truth. And you get to unchoose, right? You get to decide, wait a minute, this isn't how I want to spend my time. This isn't how I want to spend my energy.
There are a couple of
So,
thoughts in the chat.
yeah,
Dan,
beautiful.
uh, want
I
those
would
to
like to be
say?
more,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
be more mindful of our precious gift of time. Absolutely. Let's see here. Your thoughts reflected as to how to lead and live through those little choices in the top regrets of the dying book. Yeah. And it's interesting. So much of the life that many of us have lived into this point are kind of under the umbrella of what I call the shoulds. And I want to challenge every one of us to stop shoulding all over ourselves. And that's part of being true to ourselves. To look at things through the lens, am I doing this because I want to? Am I doing this because it's going to help me experience my life the way I want to experience it? Or am I doing it because I think I should? We should away our time in big ways and small ways. I shouldn't leave this job. I've been here 40 years. Like, right? But you really want to be doing something else. We also do it in little ways. We say yes to commitments that we really don't care about, right? So we also spend a lot of times trying to be who we think we should be. I should be helpful. I should be the people pleaser. I should be productive. I should be, right? Whatever that happens to be for you, I should be skinny. I should be a morning person. I should be, who says, right? We spend so much of our time and our energy trying to be who we think we should be. And I want to challenge you to be more of who you are, to lean into who you are. And if there are parts of you that you find unsavory, because we all have parts of us that we have guilt or shame or regret or, kind of whatever feelings around that isn't very positive, that's part of you too. Look at all parts of yourself, embrace who you are, accept who you are. Isn't it time to start loving who you are? That's a big part of living in alignment, of embracing and accepting who you are and making your choices through that lens, right? So this living in alignment, I could spend another couple hours talking about it, but I do have some exercises in the workbook that I think you can focus on. The other thing I want to touch on is the power of what you choose to focus on. And we started our conversation with me asking you, what kind of day are you having? Because every moment of every day, unless it's something that's truly, truly challenging, you're experiencing pain or something, grief or something has really rocked your world, more often than not, the kind of moment you're experiencing is based on what you're choosing to focus on. And as a person that experiences at this moment at night, I experience a neuromuscular condition that is very painful. I'm still very intentional about what I choose to focus on. Because when you focus on the pain, your story does a negative spiral. When I focus on the beautiful family that's with me, right, your head goes in another direction. So even when things are really challenging, you still have the power to choose what you focus on. I remember there was a day back, it was probably about 10 years ago now, my youngest boy, Danny, he had this weird thing in his neck. It was like this tight thing that clicked, and it was kind of like just Danny's weird neck. And we just thought it was a muscle thing, just kind of tight. Brought him to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, we should just make sure he doesn't have a tumor or a cyst." And all of a sudden, my brain is flooded with all the bad mom stories and all the fear about what could be wrong with my little Danny, right? The day that he was going to go in for his test, he was going to go in at 4 o'clock. The whole day, I was just so anxious, and that's all I was thinking about. I brought him in for his test at 4 o'clock, learned he was totally fine at about 4:20. And it wasn't until we left that test that I even noticed that it was that beautiful day here in the Northeast. You probably, if any of you are in the Northeast or Midwest, you know what I'm talking about. That day where all of a sudden the green buds were on the trees and you could hear the birds chirping and you saw the first blossoms and people were out in their shirts with no jackets. And there's just this unbelievable vibe that life is coming back to life. And it was that day that I love. And I didn't even notice it was that day until I knew Danny was okay. Because the kind of day that you experience is what you're focusing on. So I want you to be intentional about what you're focusing on and to catch yourself, because that's the first step. When are you complaining? When are you commiserating? When are you focusing on that story, that narrative that you have in your head that in no way serves you to move forward? When are you focusing on ruminating? When are you focusing on catastrophizing, which is what I was doing with Danny, right? The trick is for you to notice. That's always the beginning place. And to notice without judgment. And if you commit yourself to noticing, what am I focusing on right now? Oh gosh, my head's going down a negative rabbit hole. What's that about, right? In that moment of noticing and not judging, you're creating a shift. You're creating that space that I talked about with Viktor Frankl. That space between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is where your power is. That's where your choice is. So your goal right now is to notice when your head, when your mind, when your focus, when your feelings, when your actions are not serving you, when they're sending you into a negative rabbit hole. So focus on noticing. So how are we doing on time? Oh, good, 12:35. I'm so proud of myself. I put on my outline, 12:35. I wanted to start this part of the conversation to keep myself on track. So I'm going to condense being present and gratitude into kind of a lump because they kind of go together. So being present. How many of you feel like you're not necessarily present to your days? You're not necessarily present with your loved ones. You're not less necessarily present with what it is you're doing in the moment. Too often. Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Absolutely. I remember noticing when my kids were little that I was fortunate. I was a stay-at-home mom and I did my consulting projects at night when they were in bed or when they were taking naps. At that time, I felt so fortunate to be with them all the time, but I realized I wasn't really being present. I was busy doing the dishes as they were talking. I was busy doing whatever as they were trying to get my attention. To be fully present with what you're doing in the moment is the essence of mindfulness. To be fully present with what you're doing in the moment is really the essence of life, because the reality is your life only exists in these moments. Again, we think life is that big event out there, right? The retirement, the wedding, the whatever. No, it's not. Your life is in these tiny little ordinary moments. And if you're not present to these little moments, you cannot remember them. And if you're not present to these moments, you cannot appreciate them, which is where gratitude comes in. So they're both of them are very linked together. That's why with my compass point, I want to feel at peace, to know I live fully and love with all my heart. To live fully has all sorts of things out of my comfort zone, being adventurous, all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, being present. You will be happier being present with something you do not necessarily enjoy than you will be when your head is not present with the things and the people you do enjoy. So let me put that in perspective. You're going to be happier doing the dishes if you're focusing on the warm water and the suds and the, right? Like you're going to be more happy, more content being present with that than you are being with your loved one when all you can think about is what's happening in the world, what's happening in the news, what's it like, right? Ruminating, thinking about tomorrow. Oh my gosh, what did I not do? Like, if you're not present with the person you love, you can't be grateful for that moment. So you will always experience life more fully when you're present. And that includes every emotion that we experience, by the way, too. We're meant to be present with what we experience. We're meant to be present with our sadness, with our anger, with our happiness, with our joy. You know, a lot of people think happiness is putting a smiley face on all the time, and it could not be further from the truth. Happiness requires that you can navigate life's up and downs and still keep your head in a positive frame of mind. So you allow yourself to experience. You cannot experience joy fully if you don't experience sorrow and grief and anger fully. Because all of your emotions, if you think about them going through a pipeline, like there's a pipe, and all your emotions flow through that pipe, you can't block some emotions and not block all of them. So it's really important to give yourself permission to be present with what is, to allow yourself to experience what is, and then shift to something that is more empowering to you. Emotions only last, by the way, about 90 seconds. It's the story that we attach to the emotion that keeps us suffering, right? You can be really upset. You can be really angry. You can be in a place of pain. You can be in a place that really is challenging. Be with it fully. It's going to wash over you. You're going to feel it wash over. If it lasts more than 90 seconds or 2 minutes, it means you've gone into story. You've started creating a narrative about what this means for you, what this means for your life, and now you're going to continue your suffering. So staying present in this moment is so, so important. So let me ask you in the chat, what do you want to fully experience today? When you look at the rest of your day, what do you want to fully experience? What do you want to be present with? Who do you want to be present with? Yeah, Kristen, it's an ongoing practice of bringing myself back to presence. Absolutely. And by the way, meditation, most of us feel like we can't meditate because we feel like our mind is supposed to be empty. It's not. Meditation is about catching yourself and bringing yourself back. And that's what this mindfulness practice is catching yourself being with your loved one and that your head is over there and bringing yourself back to your loved one. It's catching yourself being outdoors in a beautiful environment and you're thinking about what's going on in the world, catching yourself and bringing yourself back, right? It is the practice of catching yourself. Being present with my dog, permission to be curious, calm rather than frenzied, absolutely. Spaciousness, being more present with my husband. By the way, that's one I'm working on with my husband. My husband's a guy that loves to follow the news. He's preparing for every worst case scenario. I'm the person that only knows what's going on in the world enough to kind of sort of be informed. But if I can't change it, I choose not to focus on it. You know, so we're both very different in that kind of place. And there's a lot of times that he's not being fully present. And I have to kind of knock on him like, hello, right here, right? He's got to practice bringing himself to the present. And bringing yourself back to what it is you can control, right? So much of what we're focusing on, we can't control anyways. It's not even ours to hold. So being present. And I tie this in again with gratitude, because gratitude is really the combination of being present and choosing what you focus on. It's being intentional about focusing on the good. And when you focus on the good, when you appreciate the good appreciates in value, kind of like an investment, right? When you appreciate the good, it appreciates in value. And when you do not appreciate the things that are good, it depreciates in value. And that's when we take people for granted. That's when we take situations for granted, right? So focusing on gratitude, they've actually shown can increase your happiness by about 15%. And I'm not surprised, because it means that what you're doing is you're intentionally putting your lens on what it is I can be grateful for. You're intentionally putting your lens on what is actually going well. You're actually putting your lens on what is going well and what did I have to do with what went well. And you hear about gratitude practices. You can write down your gratitudes. You can put a little slip in a vase every day about what you're grateful for. A gratitude practice can take any form. For me, a lot of times it's when I'm brushing my teeth at night. I think about what went well that day. I want you to feel the thing you're grateful for. If you're a gratitude list person, that's awesome, but don't just write the list. Allow yourself to feel it again, to experience it again. I remember back when my oldest son, Zach, was in high school. He's now turning 26 next week. But when he was in high school, little backstory, I was told I have 3 boys. Oh, they're never not even going to know you exist, right? Like, you'll be lucky if you get a word out of them. I had the opposite experience, and I'm so grateful for that. And my oldest son, when I would drive into the driveway and he was home, he would run out the front door, run to the car, and give me a hug. And it was like the most beautiful thing. And the funny thing is, it was usually when I was arriving at home and my head was in the, okay, how am I going to get this kid to this field at this time? How am I going to get this kid to this field at this time? Oh, Danny's got to get to basketball. And oh my God, what are we doing for dinner? Right? This is where my head is swimming, right? And he would stop me in my tracks and hug me. And it just brought me to the present. And the thing that is so beautiful about gratitude is when you're grateful for something in the moment, you get to experience it again and again. I would not remember that if I didn't allow myself to kind of just collapse into that beautiful present moment. If I just kept my head in that, what do I need to do? Space, right? So to be grateful is a conscious act. And one thing that I'm doing, and I'm just going to kind of throw this out here for you guys to consider, is to create a gratitude buddy, to find a gratitude buddy. I'm in a program, it's around this healing that I have that's trauma related. And one of the things that we've done is we've created a little gratitude buddy group, and we call ourselves our GFFs, our Gratitude Friends Forever. And every single day we pop into our WhatsApp and we share 3 things that we're grateful for that day. And I tell you, it's the most beautiful way to get to know somebody through the lens of what they're grateful for. And it challenges you every single day to be kind of like a detective for what went well. I, on a personal note, had a really challenging day yesterday. Health was not working for me in the way that I had hoped, and it was a challenging day. And I had so much to be grateful for. And there was so much that was good. And if I didn't take the time to notice it, I would have just been focusing on the challenge. So I want to challenge you to find a gratitude buddy. It could be a good friend. It could be somebody here in the Encore Network. It could be, hey, do you want to be a GFF here in the chat? But to find somebody that you can express your gratitude with on a daily basis. And if that doesn't work for you, think about what does. And it might just be simply ending your day as you brush your teeth, thinking about what went well. To be intentional with that is a game changer. Make sure we're doing good on time. So we have a few more minutes here. The number 1 predictor of people's happiness is the quality of their relationships. And you've probably heard this from different studies, whether it be the longitudinal study that Harvard did. There's also been all sorts of other smaller studies. By the way, my background is in positive psychology, which is the science of happiness, and in coaching. So there are all sorts of studies that have been done. And there was one study actually that stood out in a small town in Pennsylvania with a lot of Italian immigrants. And they found that these Italian immigrants did not have the same diseases that we experience in our Western culture. They didn't have hypertension, diabetes, they didn't have heart disease. So they're like, what's the deal? Like they just assumed it was the food, right? Like they must be eating something totally different and amazing because they're Italian. So they did a study to look at their habits, to look at, all these different variables, genetics, blood work, everything else. What they found was the reason why these people were not experiencing the same illnesses was because of the quality of their relationships. These people all cook together, eat together, hang out on the porch together afterwards. Generations are together. There's a priority placed on the quality of their relationships. They find this to be true in the blue zones. The blue zones are the areas in the world where most people live, more people than average live to the age of 100. They've studied what makes these people live lives that are not just long, not just longevity. We're talking health span, right? They are healthy and vibrant for many, many more years. One of the key things is the quality of the relationships. So in our busy world, in our distracted world, in the world where we're looking at our phones, in the world where we just let ourselves, kind of go off and we've got more to do than we possibly can do in a given day, more often than not, it's our relationships that are taking a hit. And I want you to think about that because the quality of your relationships matter, not the quantity, the quality. So here are a few things that you can do. And I want you to actually, if you could just kind of close your eyes for a moment and think about somebody in your life that is really important to you. It could be a loved one. It could be a family member. It could be a colleague. It could be a friend. Think about somebody who's really important to you and you would really love to invest more energy, more effort into elevating this relationship. Do you have that person in mind? So as you consider this person, what would be different if you express gratitude to this person for the role they've played in your life, for how they show up in your life? We all know how it feels to feel appreciated, right? We also know how it feels to not be appreciated. So think about what you might want to express in terms of gratitude to this person. Also, what are you doing with this person when everything is at its best? When the two of you are interacting well, when the two of you are having great conversation, when you feel really connected to this person, what is it that you're doing and how are you showing up? Take that in. I want you to do more of that. More often than not, when there's strain in a relationship, when there's something that's not going well, because our brain has a negativity bias, that's what you're focusing on. We're focusing on all the little nitpicky things that drive us crazy, right? With that person in that relationship. Instead, focus on what is going well. When we're at our best, what are we doing? Let's bring more of that into our life. It doesn't take the challenge away necessarily, but it certainly makes it a hell of a lot easier to deal with it. And it shifts your focus, right? To what it is you appreciate about this person, to what it is that you can do and want to do when you're at your best. The other thing with relationships and the best relationships are relationships where you lean into vulnerability. So you seek to be known by that person, not for them to see the glossy exterior, not to see the beautiful tidbits you want them to see, but to lean in and to have somebody see all of who you are. And that can be scary, right? We humans have two needs. We want to matter and we want to belong. Two fundamental human needs. So in your relationships, lean in to it's a two-sided equation. Lean in to being a little bit more vulnerable, to sharing a little bit more, maybe exposing a little bit more about what's really going on with you. Not just sharing those things that you think are appealing or glossy. The flip side of that coin is to listen and to be curious about the other person. You're seeking to know the other person and to be known by the other person. So as you flip it to listening and to being curious about somebody, this is particularly true with the people you spend the most time with. Because the people you spend the most time with are probably the people you listen to the least. Because you already know what they're going to say. You already know what they're going to do. You can finish their sentences. There was an exercise that we did in my positive psychology program years ago, and it was so powerful. And it was so simple. The teacher it was about 180 of us, put us into little dyads. We were meeting with one person that we had never met. And each of us had 3 minutes to speak. And the question was, how are you? How are you really? And the role of the listener was to simply listen with kind eyes. And that phrase has always stuck out to me, to listen with kind eyes. No me toos, no interjecting, no solving, no, just to listen with kind eyes. There was a Kleenex box being passed around that room. I mean, most of us were in tears. Because if you think about it, how often do you really, really listen, especially to the people that you're closest to? And how often do you really feel listened to? How often do you feel like somebody really is understanding you, really trying to take in and be curious about you? That is a gift. So to cultivate these relationships, these are the 3 things I want you to focus on, and they will be in the workbook. 1 is expressing gratitude. 2, focusing on what goes well. What is your relationship? How are you showing up? What are you doing when the 2 of you are at your best? And 3 is seeking to know that person, to listen, to be curious, and to be known by that person, which is leaning into vulnerability. And Doug, I know that we're close to the wrap time. I want to close with adding positivity to your days. Happiness, as I shared, and I think I've convinced you that it really matters, not only for you, but for everybody around you. Happiness also matters for another reason. Remember I said that when you're happier, when you're well, you will accomplish and be more successful in every single domain of your life, including your health and your relationships and your work. A big reason why that is true is because when you're operating in a place where you are happy, you are grateful, you are operating from a place of love, your energy level is at that place. You can't solve the problems of today, rolling around in the muck of whatever the problem is today, at the low energy of today, when what you really want to be experiencing is the energy level that's higher. You need to match your energy levels. And this gets into manifesting, but take it from kind of the surface level of the energy you put out into the world matters. And a big reason why you're more successful in every single area is because you're vibrating at a much higher energy. When you're in a place of being grateful, when you're in a place of positivity, when you're in a place of being intentional about what you focus on, when you're intentional about showing up as your best self, right? Like you're operating at a completely different place. And you get to choose to add more positivity to your days. And it does not need to take a lot of time. I know all of you are busy, but you can interject more positivity in your days. 2 minutes here, 3 minutes here, 2 minutes here. You know, you can be listening and playing a song. You can decide I'm going to take a break and go outside and get some fresh air on your face for 2 minutes. You can add these things to your days that truly do elevate your well-being. And so my assignment for you, my homework for you, is I want you to be really intentional and thoughtful about writing a list about when your life is going really well, what are you doing? When you're feeling most alive, what are you doing? Who are you with? When you feel like you're in flow, what are you doing? Who are you with? When you feel happy, What is that list for you? And that ends up being your happy list. And your happy list is going to be different than my happy list. Like most of us are probably going to say we want to, all of us love nature. But some of you may just absolutely be really, really happy with a beautiful cup of espresso. And that's not on my happy list. I'm really, really happy with an amazing piece of dark chocolate, right? So, what are those things that just make you happy? Those little things and those big things. And to be intentional about adding those things to your days. I know so many of you are experiencing hardships right now. So many of you are caught up in the news of what's happening in the world. There's a lot that's going on kind of around us that can really, really drag us down. But again, you're 100% responsible for your happiness. You're 100% responsible for your well-being. And you get to choose to add some of these things that just make you happy just because you deserve to enjoy your day. You deserve to add that to your life. Even on a big deadline day, you still get to enjoy a good meal or go outside for 5 minutes or, right, whatever it is that lights you up, or eat that beautiful candy bar. So be intentional about adding positivity to your days. And like everything, it's a ratio. It's called the positivity ratio. Positive experiences are in the numerator. Those negative or draining experiences are in the denominator. You also get to choose to spend less of your time and less of your energy on the things that drain you. Right? Maybe having the perfectly clean house drains you. Maybe you can let that go. Maybe a certain person drains you, but you can't get them out of your life. But you want to put some parameters around how you spend time together. Maybe doing the dishes drains you. Maybe you got somebody else that you can delegate it to, right? So to be intentional about what can I do to add more positivity and what can I do to spend less time, less energy on those things that are draining to me. So I'm going to give this a little wrap. I know we're coming to our deadline here. A few of the practices, these are all in the workbook. Create your compass point. How is it that you want to feel? How do you want to be experiencing this life of yours? And that's going to help you live in alignment with actually what matters to you most. And there's some questions that will help you drill down on what matters to you most now at this stage of life. What you choose to focus on in any given moment. Slowing down and being present to the moment. Being present with what is. Gratitude, being intentional about choosing to focus on the good and being present with the things that are good. Your relationships, there are so many things that we can do proactively to elevate our relationships, and it does not need to take a lot of time. So cultivating your relationships and adding positivity to your days and being intentional about that because you deserve to enjoy your days. So I'm 1 minute to the top of the hour. Doug, I didn't leave you much time. But one thing I want to share with you too, because I was sharing a lot and I was trying to get a little more conversation going, I know each of you have questions and feel free to reach out to me. And if you have questions here in the chat, we're saving the chat. You can put the question in the chat. I can get back to you with an answer, or you can reach out to me directly. And my email is Dana. I can kind of put it in the chat here. My email is dana@wiserandfree.com. So feel free, reach out. I'll answer any questions to the best of my ability. So thank you for being here.
And thank you, Dana, for being here.
Yes.
And we will share, I know there's a lot to think about and a lot of content here. We will be sharing the recording. We'll also share the chat, and we'll share the link to Dana's email address, as well as a link to the workbook. So you'll have all of that information that you can use to continue to think about this, to remind you of the great ideas and suggestions that Dana had for us today. And what better way to celebrate the International Day of Happiness than to focus on happiness, right? And to think about what we can do as individuals to move forward in our lives in a much more happy way. There are a number of upcoming events. I'm not going to take time now to cover them, but I will include them also in the follow-up email, or you can go to our website, encorenetwork.org, and click on the events tab, and you'll see a number of really interesting events coming up, some of them hosted by the network and some offered by others. So I hope you'll do that. Also, if you're not already a member of the Encore Network, now is a really good time to join because you can also get a free copy of Ken Stern's book. For those of you who had the pleasure of hearing Ken talk about his travels to the places that Dana was referring to, the places in the world where people live the longest, and learning about what makes them happy, what makes them successful, what makes them live better and longer. And that copy of that book can be yours by signing up as an Encore Pro or Encore Enterprise member. So with that, I'm going to say good day. Thank you all for attending. Thanks, Dana, again.
Thank you. So
Hope
much
to have
fun, and so glad you could all join. Have a great afternoon.